So when I was a kid, I really wanted to make it across the monkey bars. This is a very famous story in my household. All my friends could do it, every single one of them, and I was completely frustrated and exhausted from trying. Now, it's not going to surprise anybody here to know that I was not particularly athletic as a kid. In fact, I lacked such coordination that I was in an extra period of gym every week. It was called special gym. And I know, you didn't know it existed, right? And believe it or not, it was the only day of the week that I was really popular because I got to bring a friend. And everyone wanted to get out of class to go to special gym. So what do we do in special gym? We learned how to jump rope. I wasn't so good at jump roping. Now, the other funny part about this is that the kids that I remember being in special gym with me when I was a kid, they were like special gym success stories because they went off and joined the field hockey team and the soccer team in high school. I did theater. But I did learn how to jump rope. And if you ever see me at a really fun Jewish wedding, one of my favorite shtick tricks is jumping rope in high heels. Thank you, special gym. But the monkey bars were pretty challenging. And I would come home every day with blisters on my hands. And then one day I came home and my mom looked at my hands and they were bleeding. But then she looked at my face and I was ecstatic. I was glowing because I had finally made it across those monkey bars. So believe it or not, this sermon is not actually about monkey bars. But it might be a bit about the blisters that form when we wear ourselves out. I began Rosh Hashanah by sharing my feelings about how tired we all are and how love is a panacea to get us through. Tonight, I want to address a key symptom of our exhaustion, a feeling of helplessness, a feeling of agitation and frustration, a feeling that can sometimes lead us to throw up our blistered hands and yell, "It's just too late." I'm guessing that many of you have heard it or even said it yourself. It's just too late. Maybe it's about a broken friendship or a relationship. Maybe it stems from putting something off, not pursuing a dream, or avoiding something that is personally challenging. Or maybe it's because of more of a global issue. It's hard not to look out at the world right now and be overwhelmed by the reality of how things are. With COVID continuing to waft its way through our society and so many people not wanting to get vaccinated, it's understandable that we would just have this feeling that it's never gonna go away and that it's just too late. We look at our planet, we are in code red. We can't seem to break our addiction to fossil fuels, and we can't seem to pass decent legislation on climate. Fires are burning in the West. Flooding is drowning the East. And here in Denver, I don't know if you saw last month that we had the worst air quality in the world. It's hard not to look out and just say, it's just too late. And it's not actually only COVID and climate, it's other stuff too. We look at the struggle for racial justice, the fact that people are struggling and scared to teach real history and quite literally want to whitewash our education system. And voter suppression has actually become the legal norm in some states. It's an unbelievable reality. And then we consider the mental health crisis, the lack of affordable housing, the fact that regularly we can open the papers or look on our iPhones and see that there has been a shooting. And then Texas, the stripping away of women's rights, abortion rights, it's taking us back generations. We look at all of this, and it is really understandable that we are tempted to throw up those hands and say, it's too late. But on this cold Nidre, I think the most important thing I can say to you as your rabbi is that it is not too late. It may be late. The work may be hard. The stakes may be high. Our hands, they may well be blistered, but it is not too late. In Pirkei Avot, Rabbi Tarfon said, "The day is short, the work is great, the workers are lazy, the reward is great, and the master of the house presses." But then he adds a statement, which is one of my favorite lines in all of rabbinic literature. Lo alecha hamlacha ligmor, velo ata ben chorin lihibatal mimena. You don't need to finish the work, but you are not free to give it up either. Our tradition demands that we never say it's too late and use that as an excuse for despair and idleness. Our teachings insist that we push forward when you are faced with mountains that feel insurmountable, that we must reach deep inside and pull forth tikvah, a transcendent sense of hope, true hope. And let's be clear, there is actually a huge difference between true hope and false hope. In his book, The Anatomy of Hope, Dr. Jerome Grootman writes about an early career as an oncologist. Dr. Grootman had been taught by his mentor that when he was given a grave prognosis for a patient, when a patient had a grave prognosis, he should withhold information, allowing that patient to live with some sense of hope, some sense of optimism. This led Dr. Grootman to share only positive possibilities for the patient, never saying that there might not be a chance of survival. But Dr. Grootman's entire approach changed when he saw a 16-year-old girl sitting by her mother's bedside as she died. The girl looked at him and said, "How could you not tell me the truth about her condition? How could you allow us to think that she was going to survive? How could you allow us to not know how close she was to leaving us?" In that moment, with that 16-year-old girl, Dr. Grootman learned the difference between true hope and false hope. False hope attempts to keep people positive, to enable people to cling to something that will likely not actually happen. False hope leads to flawed decision-making because it creates a false reality for people to live within, simply putting off the inevitable pain. Inside the bubble, people cannot respond as they might truly to the real realities that are at stake. And when things get rough, then what happens? Then people, because of their false hope, are surprised. That 16-year-old girl would have probably done things a lot differently if she knew she was going to lose her mother. I'm feeling like this is what's happened for some of us with climate change. Suddenly, people are dying in flooded New York basements. Lake Tahoe is burning, and we are in dire straits. People who have accepted false hope of climate change deniers are surprised and they are unprepared. True hope is a different matter. True hope, Dr. Grootman writes, takes into account the real threats that exist and seeks to navigate the best path around them. Hope is the ballast that keeps us steady, that recognizes where along the path our dangers are and the pitfalls are that might throw us off. Hope tempers fear so we can recognize dangers and then bypass and endure them. True hope has no room for delusion. True hope is not irrational and it is not intellectual. It is grounded in facts, and yet still it enables us to move through our experiences harnessing available possibilities. Right now, on this Yom Kippur, we need to harness true hope. In many ways, this past year and a half has been a sense of crashes or near crashes. COVID crashed into us. Democracy nearly crashed. The climate feels like it's on the brink of crashing. The economy nearly crashed. Public education nearly crashed. And it's because of this relentless crashing all around us that some of us might be tempted to look out and say, there is just no hope. It's just too late. But that's where Judaism comes back and says, no, lo alecha hamlahag ligmor, no. It's not too late, but the situation is serious. Get to work. Torah insists that when there is a crash, we don't stick our heads out and we don't stick our heads right down in the sand. Torah insists that we wake up and see the world as drastically changed, a world in danger. Judaism insists that the key thing is what we choose to do immediately after the moment of that realization, when we wake up in that dire situation. Our response to change, even in disaster, is critically important. And we Jews have a history of being resilient in disaster, or we simply would not be here tonight. On Tisha B'Av, we read the book of Lamentations, the book of Eicha, a prophetic piece attributed to Jeremiah. The Babylonians have destroyed our temple. They have burned Jerusalem, and the Jews are scattered. Yet Eicha doesn't talk about the Babylonians. They aren't actually the main character in our story. We are. Instead, Lamentations talks about our Jewish grief and guilt, our suffering as we watched our temple crash and our community implode. But what happened on the day the temple was destroyed? What happened on those days? Actually, that's far less interesting in our larger Jewish story than what happened the very next day. What is fascinating is what happened when our people got up and looked around at the destruction and said, we must reinvent ourselves. We must rebuild. And guess what? They did. And then again, the Romans came and they destroyed the second temple. And what happened then? The Jewish people said, we must create new ways of being and doing Jewish. Judaism, as we know it, is born in the smoking ruins and ashes of God's temple. When our people moved forward and created the Mishnah and Talmud, they were creating new possibilities and new hope. Even then, it was not too late. So for us today, whatever the issue, whether it's personal or national or global, our fear comes from the simple fact that our reality has awakened us and we are heartbroken and bewildered all at once. And then we remember somewhere deep in our Jewish souls that we have to act. That just adds for us sometimes to the feeling of fatigue and fear. The commandment to act comes directly from the Torah. If you see your neighbor's ox or donkey wandering on the street, you are commanded to rescue it and return it. Lo tuchal lehitalem, literally translated, you are not allowed to remain indifferent. This text has been applied to all sorts of circumstances. When we witness suffering, we are obligated to step in. Indifference is not an option. The rabbis in the Talmud, they even say that if you witness wrongdoing from a member of your very household, your job is to protest. And if you do not protest, well, guess what? You are accountable. In other words, speak up, step in. It is not too late. These high holiday services, they highlight our Jewish calendar's way of reminding us that we must step in. It's not too late. That's what the stories tell us, each of the stories that we read. On the first day of Rosh Hashanah, we read about Hagar, who sat with Ishmael weeping. He almost died of thirst in the desert, exiled from his father's house. And as he wept, an angel came and opened Hagar's eyes and said, there is a well before you. It is not too late. We also read of Hannah who prays for a child. Her prayer is so intense that Eli thinks she is drunk. She also learns that it is not too late. In our second day of Rosh Hashanah reading, Abraham is about to sacrifice his son Isaac, his beloved son, his favorite son. And just as Abraham is extending that knife, the angel comes and interrupts and saves Isaac and brings Abraham back to his moral center. It wasn't too late for Isaac or for Abraham either. And in tomorrow's Yom Kippur reading, the very first line of the Torah reminds us that Aharon has not properly mourned for his sons. And only when he goes quietly into the Mishkan is he able to take that necessary time, the quiet, the pause. It's not too late. Tomorrow at Mincha, just before the fast ends, we are going to read about Yonah. He runs into the stomach of a whale in order to avoid action. But after being spit out, he too learns that it is not too late to take responsibility and change a decree. In so many of these Torah stories, there is supernatural intervention to tell us it's not too late. Go and save the day. You won't be surprised to learn as a non-literalist that I am not expecting a supernatural God to come in and do that and make changes and send an angel in our lives. The miraculous intervention that we need to have, that needs to come from us. That is actually our job. Even as we end Yom Kippur tomorrow night, with images of the gates of Tshuva closing, our rabbis say that the gates don't really close until Hoshana Rabbah, at the very end of Sukkot. It's amazing. Even as Yom Kippur is ending, even as Yom Kippur is ending, it's still not too late. If you have a realization of something that you want to do differently, you can still apologize tomorrow and the day after and the day after that and the day after that. What we learn from this is actually the work that we do on this day, it's important. But the work that we do on the following days, that's actually what's vital. So we call Yom Kippur the Sabbath of Sabbaths. This is like the grand Shabbat. And on some deep and beautiful level, hope and renewal lie at the heart of the very essence of Shabbat. It's never too late to stop and have Shabbat. And Shabbat itself rejuvenates us and insists that it is never too late for us to use the 6 days of whole, the 6 days when we are out there doing work, to make our world the world that we want it to be. In the Shabbat Kiddush, just before we say the blessing, we recite Sheshet Yamim Tavod V'Asita Kol Malachtecha for 6 weeks, for 6 days. You should do the holy work that you do out in the world. And then Shabbat Vayina Fash. On the 7th day, you need to regroup and rest. So what do we do on Shabbat? We share the day with friends and families. We sing, we pray, we eat, we do l'chaim. We here at Road of Shalom are so blessed to have such a dynamic Shabbat community here. And the prayers that we say, they articulate the distinction between Shabbat and the rest of the week. And at the end of Shabbat, when we say Havdalah, we hearken the prophet Elijah, Eliyahu Hanavi, who the mythic tradition tells us is going to usher in a messianic time. Elijah is a symbol for us of hope, a symbol of all that we can create in the coming week. Shabbat gives us the energy to say it's not too late and go back out into the world and do our holy work again. So a few weeks ago, I was on a pre-Rosh Hashanah rabbinic call with President Biden. And he said that once he had the privilege of meeting Prime Minister Golda Meir. And she was sharing with him the incredible difficulties, the realities that are so challenging on the ground and were so challenging on the ground in Israel. When they walked outside, the Prime Minister looked at President Biden and said, "Senator, you look so gloomy." And he said, "Yeah, I mean, this seems really bleak. And Prime Minister Golda Meir replied back, perk up. We Jews, we have a secret weapon. We have no place else to go. So while this may sound a bit depressing, it's actually what we all need to hear right now. We are here. We are here in Denver in the year 2021. This is our moment. We have no place else to go. There is no planet B unless we create it right here and right now. That can be an inspiration for us never to say it's too late, because it actually can't be too late. We are here, and when we are here, Judaism tells us that our job is to be here and to stand up and act. So now is the time. Now is the time to make amends with the cousin or the sibling or the parent or the child that we haven't spoken with. Now is the time to reach out to the friend that we have not been in touch with. Now is the time to have that difficult conversation that we have avoided. Maybe we've avoided it because it would be awkward. Maybe we've avoided it because we're afraid. It's not too late. Now is the time to engage in the dream that we had for our career or for our family. Now is the time to engage the side interest that we wanted to make more of a reality in our lives. It's not too late. And now is the time to have the hard conversation about vaccines with the friend that we might see on Facebook or we might see in our lives who is scared to get the shot. It's not too late. Now is the time to get involved in advocacy for our planet. Maybe it's through our Chazan Moshe Kornfeld's group, Colorado Jewish Climate Action, or it could be part of any number of other great organizations that are out there. It's not too late. And now is the time to sign up to get involved in Road Faith Tzedek, our social justice group right here at Road of Shalom. We can also get involved, and we should get involved with Together Colorado, who are our partners, our interfaith partners in this holy, this tremendously sacred work. Together, we are fighting for affordable housing. We're fighting for racial and economic justice right here in Colorado. Simply getting on the mailing list so that you can help move ahead important legislation, or so that you can know when your voice might be needed to testify for important bills right here in our state government, that will make a difference. It's not too late. Join the ACLU, the NAACP, the ADL, HIAS, Jews for Racial and Economic Justice, the National Council of Jewish Women, NARAL, Pro-Choice America, Ceasefire Colorado. I could go on. Thank God we have so many organizations fighting every day to say, yep, folks, it's not too late. Pick one, pick three. This is the year to step up and get involved. The Talmud in Masechet Makot tells us that when Rabbi Akiva was walking from Mount Scopus down to the destroyed temple, he stood with his friends Rabban ben Gamliel, Rabbi Yehoshua, and Rabbi Elazar. And Rabbi Akiva laughed. His friends looked at him and they really looked puzzled. "Why are you laughing?" they asked. And he said, "Because I believe in the prophecy. I believe in the prophecy that old people will once again sit in this city with joy." In other words, even as Rabbi Akiva looked directly at the destruction, he believed it was not too late. Let's decide on this Kol Nidre 5782 that we will manifest true hope, that we will hear the Torah's call to step up and step in, that we will look down at our blistered hands and out at our beautiful, wounded world and do what our Jewish ancestors have done since the days of Avraham and Sarah. Let's get to work. Shana Tova. Gamar Tov.